Well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to Garden Party, where we are, as you probably already know, your virtual series from the Southern California News Group, here to give you tips and tricks and insights into getting the most out of your gardening experience. And also maybe find a community of like-minded green thumbs, or in my case, a wannabe green thumb. I'm Sam Dunn. I'm the senior editor for premium content here at the Southern California News Group. And I want to say thank you to all of our Reader Reward subscribers for supporting our virtual programs. And by the way, if you are a Reader Reward subscriber, you know the drill. If you're attending today, you're automatically entered to win a $100 gift certificate from Home Depot. And if you're not a subscriber, well, why aren't you a subscriber? Go to scng.com/subscribe and find your local paper and join us as a subscriber. If you've been here before, you know the drill, but in case you haven't, let me remind you. If you're an attendee, you're muted. But if you have questions, and really we hope you do, use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar on your screen. And certainly if you want to make comments, you can use the chat feature found there as well. I'm going to be behind the scenes monitoring questions and comments, and we're going to respond as much as possible. Keep in mind that this is a freewheeling conversation, as you'll see, so just know that you're going to have slides to refer to as we go along, and the information is also going to be emailed to you after the show. Speaking of after the show, the session will be videotaped and a link is going to be sent to you so you can share or just revisit some of your favorite moments. It's also posted at scng.com/virtual events, and that's where you can find all of our past virtual shows and see what's coming up. Now it is my extreme pleasure to introduce our rock star resident expert, Joshua Siskin. He's been the gardening columnist at the LA Daily News and at Southern California News Group since 1993. Joshua holds a master's degree in horticulture from UC Davis, and he's been a landscaping and gardening practices instructor for the Los Angeles Unified School District and UCLA Extension. And he owned his own landscaping management company. And he's written a book too. It's called Green Plants Under Smoggy Skies, a guide for the Los Angeles gardener. And wait, he's also a licensed psychotherapist. So as I like to joke always, that's why he's good at getting to the root of our gardening issues. Anyway, hello, Joshua, how are you?
Great, Samantha, good to be here.
It is always good to be here. So before we get to our topic today on avocados and other tropical fruit trees, I understand you've got an interview coming up with a radio station. What is that?
Right. Well, it's with KCVR News, and I'm going to be interviewing this week, but it's going to be on air June 23rd, a week from tomorrow at 6:30 p.m., and then on a week from Saturday at 4 p.m. So great. Be sure to tune in. Yeah.
You are so popular, so all of our San Bernardino listeners can tune into you again there. Anyway, so let's get to the topic today. Avocados and tropical fruit trees. What do we usually begin at the beginning? So let's begin at the beginning.
Yeah, we'll try a definition. Well, really what I'm saying, what are the conditions and what are the considerations that a person has to take into account when planting a tropical fruit tree? Well, the first is you have to be in an area that's not that does not endure freezing temperatures. Okay. Now, most of these trees can endure a few hours of 32-degree or even 30-degree, even 28-degree cold, but they cannot be exposed to those temperatures for a prolonged period of time. Now, that being said, when a tree is young, it's particularly susceptible to frost damage. And what a lot of people do is they wrap their tree in burlap during the first 2 years or 3 years of the tree's life, every night during the winter, and then you have to make sure you take it off in the daytime. Another thing people do is they hang Christmas tree lights around their tree, because that also produces heat. And that's another way. Yeah. So those are among the techniques you can do to, once you get past the first 2 or 3 years, all of these trees you'll be able to grow as long as you're south of Granada Hills. In other words, you're not too far north, but it includes all of our readership areas. Yeah.
Wonderful.
They're
certainly familiar. They're certainly familiar to a lot of us.
Yeah. And one thing I should mention, most of these plants have shallow roots, which underscores the importance of mulching the tree, because when roots are shallow, they're more exposed to the elements, especially heat. And when the roots are stressed, the tree is stressed. So mulch is absolutely critical to the health of all these trees. Ideally, it should be at least 4 inches thick, but kept at 4 inches thick all the time. You can get it for free from your tree trimmer's dump truck. Just corral someone in the street who's trimming trees. Tell them to dump the load on your driveway, and you're set. Every 2 or 3 years, I would say 3 years. If you do it 4 inches deep, every 3 years you need to redo that. But it's free.
It's free. We like free. We like free. So anyway, moving on. Let's move on to our next slide.
Yeah. Anyway. So the avocado, right? This is like the favorite tree of all the tropical trees. Yeah. is native to Mexico and Central America, and there are 3 different races, they call them. One is the Mexican race, which comes from Mexico. One is Guatemalan, comes from Guatemala, and the third is West Indian. Now, the West Indian race actually, I don't know if you can see on this map, but it's all along the Pacific coast of Central America. They call it the West Indian race because that's where those avocados are heavily grown. Places like Bermuda, Bahamas, and Dominican Republic. There's tons of avocados grown there. And the most cold tolerant are the Mexican, and then the Guatemalan are a little bit less cold tolerant, and the West Indian are the most tropical. And the word avocado comes from an Aztec word.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So moving on, let's get some more information. There's some really interesting California.
Yeah, they're very interesting. Even though the first avocado in America was grown in Florida, the industry began in the 1850s. In the 1850s, there was an orchard in Santa Barbara in 1895, but all the trees died after several years of drought. Sound familiar?
Sound familiar?
Yeah. But then it's very interesting. So everybody knows a fuerte tree. That's the green avocado of choice that people are usually maybe familiar with. The reason it's called fuerte is because somebody had a nursery with a lot of different avocado varieties, and there was a winter. There was a very cold winter, and the only trees that survived had come from a tree in a certain part of Mexico, and because they survived, they were called fuerte, because fuerte means strong. And that became the backbone of the avocado industry. The very first orchard was located in of fuerte trees was located in what does it say here? Yorba Linda, right? So not very far from home in 1914. Now the next big breakthrough in avocado growing was a male carrier by the name of Rudolph Hass, who lived in Pasadena, but he had some land in La Habra, and he planted some avocado trees there. Well, avocado seedlings that he was going to graft onto different varieties. And there was one particular tree that no matter how many times they tried to graft fuerte onto this tree, for some reason those grafts never took. So they finally said, okay, let this thing grow. It started growing and it had these black fruit on it, okay? And they tasted the fruit, and it was a very different taste, right? It's a lot oilier than a fuerte. So that was the beginning of the Hass avocado industry. It was a mistake. It was an accident. It wasn't supposed to happen, which tells you something. If you have an avocado seed and you plant it, you never know what you might get.
You never know what you're going to get. Well, also tell them the other part of that. We were talking about it earlier.
Right. So Mr. Hass was I guess he sold, so every Hass avocado tree comes from that one, right? Because you take a bud and you remove it from a branch, and then you graft it into a seedling, and the tree that grows is a Hass. But he personally only made $4,800 from this invention, if you want to call it that.
And now it's a multi-million-dollar industry.
Billion-dollar industry.
Billion-dollar. Wow, that's so incredible.
But it's like it's really a nice story.
I love that. All right, moving on.
So types of avocado. So the point what I'm trying to bring out here is that you have no idea how many different types there are, and you really need to kind of experiment. Find specialty stores where they grow different kinds of avocado. You can actually get them by mail order, because before you plant an avocado tree, maybe you want to see what's out there, so to speak. And so this is just an indicator. Believe me, there are dozens of more varieties, but these are some of the more common ones.
Sounds good. I love the bacon one myself. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's good. So here you have a phenomenon in avocado trees that everyone needs to be aware of. That is, there are 2 types of trees depending on the flowering time of the day that applies. So type A avocados the female flowers open up in the morning, and then the male flowers open up the following afternoon. Whereas a bee type of flower or bee type variety, the female flower opens up in the afternoon, and then the male opens up the next morning. Now, why is this significant? It's significant because the self-pollination in avocado trees, while it does occur, they are self-fertile. And if you plant one avocado tree, you will get fruit. You get a lot more fruit if you have 2 trees.
That's so interesting.
That's very important. And so I have a list here of the A and the B varieties. So for instance, a lot of people are going to plant a Hass on an A variety, and then on the right, they're going to plant a Fuerte, okay? Because you're going to have the cross-pollination.
The cross-pollination.
Right, and Fuerte is a very strong pollinator. The reason Fuerte is not as big as it used to be, it's not just because of the taste. Fuerte does not bear as heavily as Hass. So it's not as profitable for a grower to have Fuerte trees as it is to have Hass trees. So that's one of the considerations. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, for our backyard use, it might be fine though, right?
For a backyard, 100%. Yeah, no, I mean,
Sure.
If you just have one Fuerte tree, you are going to get fruit. And if somebody in the neighborhood has an A tree, right, then you're going to benefit from the pollination, which is facilitated by bees, by the way. So if there's low bee activity, you won't get any fruit. There have to be bees around. Yeah.
Hey, Joshua, we already have questions pouring in, of course. And Joshua, Jonathan Evans asked, what about Hawaiian avocados? He says, I am growing one from a pit I ate in Kauai and smuggled the pit I planted.
Yeah, right. Well, there's no such thing as a Hawaiian avocado per se, right? Like we said, they either come from Mexico, Guatemala, or West India. But so it's probably, what kind of an avocado was it? Was it a Hass avocado? Whatever it was, again, when you plant a seed, the chances of you getting a superior variety of fruit are slim, okay? Because you will get fruit eventually, but you don't know the quantity. You don't know the durability of the tree. You know, there are a lot of unknowns. So, you know, it's great to experiment, and I say go ahead, but you might be disappointed because it's going to take a good 5-7 years for you to see fruit.
Yeah, at least, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on, we have a ton of questions about what to do with avocado problems. Okay, let's go through that, and then I'll ask a few of the questions.
Right. So one of the bigger problems people thought, premature fruit drop. That's a very common problem. And as I said before, if there's lack of bee activity, you're going to get seedless fruit. Sometimes what will happen is the fruit will develop without pollination, which means if there's no pollination, you're not going to have seeds. You might not have any fruit, period, but you might get fruit. And this is called like cukes, which are 2 to 3 inches, because they look like cucumbers. They look like little baby cucumbers.
I've seen them.
And, you know, they taste just like avocado, and they're very good. But that can be an indication for lack of pollination and maybe lack of productivity in general on the tree. And sometimes these drop off too. But like the water relations, if there's too much water, if there's too little water, again, absence of the opposite type of tree. If you're growing an A and you don't have a B, then a lot of times the fruit will drop off because it's not sufficiently pollinated. If you fertilize too much, what happens if you see there's a reproductive and a vegetative growth in every plant. Vegetative growth means shoots and leaves. Reproductive growth means flowers and fruit. If you fertilize too much, you're going to promote vegetative growth at the expense of reproductive growth. So you're going to get a lot of leaves, but not very many fruit, or the fruit that do form are going to be weak and they're going to fall off.
That is interesting. Let me just circle back to a question that Kay Cofield has. She says, both my avocado and navel orange trees were loaded with blossoms, bees, and produce last year. This year, almost nothing.
Okay,
Yeah, she says, admittedly, she forgot to fertilize regularly, but she did water carefully.
But you see, there's something called alternate bearing. A lot of fruit trees have alternate bearing. They bear heavily one year, especially avocados. Avocados are notorious for this. They bear heavily one year and sparingly or not at all the next. And certain citrus trees do the same. So don't be alarmed. They'll come back. As long as they're healthy, they're gonna do their thing again next year.
Got it.
And then also insect pests can impact fruit drop. They can stress the tree. Anything that time the tree is under stress, it drop its fruit. Now,
Got
the big disease is Phytophthora root rot. When soil is not drained well, never remove avocado leaves that fall onto the tree. Phytophthora it's a water mold, right?
Oh,
And so when the water doesn't drain sufficiently, or when you overwater, or the tree is planted too deeply, this bacteria, I shouldn't say bacteria, it's a fungus that lives in the soil. Actually, it's an oomycete, which is like somewhere in between a fungus. I think it's considered a type of fungus. It proliferates under the proper conditions. It's always there. Okay, it's waiting for the opportunistic moment when there's, the water.
when there's enough.
Yeah. So you just have to be very careful. Now, never ever remove an avocado leaf that falls on the ground. Okay, but they found through research that leaving the avocado leaves on the ground can help mitigate against development of phytophthora. Okay,
That is so interesting.
Yeah. And
wow.
so if you have any,
yet another thing I've been doing wrong forever. But anyway,
no, right. Oh, those ugly leaves got rid of them. No. I mean, it's true of any tree. Of any leaves are gold. All they have are the minerals that the plant has taken up. Pity to remove them. I mean, the leaf blower should be banned, because all it does is blow away stuff that would. I shouldn't say banned. It's good for cleaning up driveways and sidewalks. I get that, but when it's in the garden, there's absolutely no place in the garden. Zero.
So interesting.
Anyway.
So sorry, you were getting to gophers and.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say insects you treat with either horticultural oil or insecticidal soap. These are non-toxic products. And gophers can be a big problem. Some trees, that's one of the reasons. There are a lot of varieties, but sometimes you want to plant a more vigorous variety. Like Hass is a very vigorous variety. Fuerte is a vigorous. What does that mean? That they won't, like if they're young and the gophers are nibbling their roots, they won't necessarily die. But there might be a tree that's even, let's say, more precocious in terms of bearing fruit, but maybe until it starts doing that, it's not that strong, and it could be killed if the gophers got to its roots. And then we have burnt leaves, which can be sunburn, windburn. Again, excess fertilizer, salt accumulation, too much or too little water. Could be chloride in the water. Chloride in the water causes brown leaves a little bit later in the year. Lack of mulch under tree, and the fact that we haven't had rain impacts all of the situation of accumulation of salt.
Yeah,
right?
That's
and because normally the rain leaches the water through, and so what some people do is once a month they soak the tree, they soak the soil. I know the water's at a premium, right? But they soak the soil really, really well to leach out the accumulated salts.
That's great.
That's what
Judy Burrell had that question on burnt leaves. So that's Judy, I hope we answered your question there. Okay, moving on. I know we've got a lot and time.
I know. So anyway, fertilization, mulching alone will supply avocados with all their mineral needs. Never remove leaves that fall underneath the tree, since their decomposition adds minerals to soil and they help prevent disease. So, here's the fascinating, and I can't, this gregalder.com. Okay, if you do nothing else today, I want you to visit that website, because this guy knows more about avocados than anybody in California, I think. Very, very incredible website. But here's the one word this guy must have 50 articles on avocados. And there's one word that you don't find in any of those articles, and that's the word fertilizer, because he doesn't use any. He says when he plants an avocado tree, he puts mulch 12 inches thick, okay? Could come from your tree trimmer across the street. Mm-hmm. And when that starts to go down, right? He says, as the tree ages, you can put the layer doesn't have to be 12 inches. You can gradually, it's going to reduce on its own anyway. But the point is keeping it up. If you keep up like a 4-inch layer, that's going to be good enough. Once the soil, is become much richer for all the decomposition of the mulch.
That's great.
But that's very simple, isn't it? You don't have to worry about what fertilizer to buy.
Yeah.
And now
water. Yeah, the water.
Okay, so water between. So again, if you go to that website, I'm going to give you a guideline in a second. But it says the water between every 3 and 14 days, depending on the time of year, right? You're going to water more now than you do in the winter. You might, if we get some rain in the winter, you might not have to water at all. And of course, quantity just depends on the size of the tree. And the 3 to 14 days is when you're getting sprinkler irrigation, like this right here, okay? Now, if you have drip irrigation, you may have to water every 2 to 3 days, but you water them much less. right?
Right.
And he has all the specifics there, but there's another something else you can do is if you dig down into the soil, if you dig 6 inches deep, and you take some soil in your hand and you clump it. If the soil sticks together, it's moist, you don't have to water. If the soil crumbles apart, then you need to water. So that's a guideline. And you can do that. You don't even need a shovel. There's something called a soil probe. You can find them online. And all you do, it's got a T handle on it, and you just sort of push it into the earth. You push it to a 6-inch soil depth, and you extract a core. And then you look at it and you say, does it stick together or does it crumble? And that will let you know if you need to water or not.
Great rule of thumb. Okay, moving on. Sorry, we have so much to do. Avocado varieties. I know we probably can't get to everything, but we do have a question on varieties.
Yeah, please.
Someone wants to know, are there any dwarf varieties for smaller yards?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question, because here we have 2 varieties. There's the little Cado and the holiday underneath. Those are the 2 dwarf varieties, but I must say something. I'd be very reluctant to plant them because they're not that precocious. I know you have a picture here, and I always give you the best picture. But you see Gem? Yeah. Gem is the one you want to plant, because Gem, one of the parents or one of the ancestors of Gem is Hass. Okay. So it has that flavor. And it's also very precocious. Another one of its parents is Gwen. Gwen is a very precocious avocado. So between the Hass and the Gwen, the Gem does not grow that tall, okay? Well, it's not a dwarf. It's probably the most compact avocado tree, and it's incredibly precocious. In other words, a Gem tree that's 10 years old will bear as much as a Hass, even though the Hass is a much bigger tree, okay? So if you really want to find something for a small, now any of these will work in a 10 by 10 space, but Gem, you could probably contract that space a little bit. Okay. But if you can't, Hass and Gwen and Reed, these are also good for small spaces. Yeah.
Hey, circling back, we have a question that actually relates to a couple questions from Yolanda Lixon. She says her sister has an avocado tree that's about 4 or 5 years old in a large pot. The thing is flowering a lot, but it bears no fruit. So what's going on there?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. If it's like we said, if it's a dwarf variety, it's going to be challenged in a pot, even though there's, you got to separate the hype from the reality. And then the other situation is you got to make sure that container is big enough, that the roots are flourishing and that they can grow out. Because if the roots are constricted in any way, you're not going to get any fruit.
Even if it's flowering, we're just still not going to get
fruit. It's not a criterion, because it's and also, do you get bees? Are there bees? If you don't have bees, you're not going to get any fruit.
Perfect. Okay, moving on. We'll let you get on with your next slide.
So propagation. Now, somebody sent me, So the way they do it in nursery, the way avocados are propagated is the upper slide in the center, where you see it's like this they call it paraffin tape that you wrap around. You take a bud, like let's say you want you could even, by the way, you could have a fuerte and an avocado and a Hass on the same tree. Let's say there's a Hass branch that's growing and you want a fuerte branch in it, because then you can get pollination with only one tree, cross-pollination.
With only one tree.
So you take a bud off the fuerte, and usually they do this in the spring, and you insert it into the stem of the Hass, and then you see the bud is growing out. So you're going to have a fuerte branch with fuerte flowers in the middle of your Hass avocado tree. Now you can also do it from cuttings, by the way. You can take a cutting from an avocado tree, put it in soil, and then what you want to do is you want to make a mini greenhouse, okay? So you take plastic, you water the soil really well, and you put plastic. You should dip the cutting in root hormone first, then put it in the soil, wrap the container with plastic. You have a mini greenhouse, and you can root a cutting that way as well. I even saw, these hacks they have on
YouTube.
There's a hack where a guy took an avocado cutting. He cut an aloe vera leaf in half. He stuck the avocado vera leaf in soil. He took the avocado seedling cutting. He stuck it in the gel of the avocado, right? Yeah. And the thing started to make it, to grow shoots and leaves. So
that's crazy. Well, Nature is a miracle.
Yeah, right.
We have a question on growing from the pit. Can we get to that section?
Yeah. Oh, I want to. So here is the thing. So there's a very nice little invention here that I didn't know about. I'm still looking into it. But on the left, you can see the avocado seed with the old classic way. You take 3 toothpicks, you balance on the rim of a mason jar or a glass, and eventually you're going to get roots and you're going to get shoots. But it's really nice. They have something now called an avocado vase. You don't have to balance anymore. All you do is take a pit and you put it in that little, that little cup. And so the roots are going to grow down and the leaves are going to go up. You don't have to worry about toothpicks. And that's a very clever invention. But
I love that. I love that. Listen, you have caused a stir without meaning to with the whole idea of not picking up leaves. Christina Torres says that she always thought it was better to neaten up the yard by picking up the leaves, and wants to know if this applies to other tropical fruit trees as well.
Look, I would say it applies to all of them, yeah. I mean, there are some things like camellia where the buds are infested with a blight and you want to take away the buds, but I've never heard of removing leaves from underneath a plant in terms of hygiene. Let's put it this way. If there's like let's say spider mites have infested the leaves and the leaves fall and the spider mites are living in the leaf, that's something else again.
Right.
But, all the research that you look at in terms of leaving the leaves tells you to do just that. Yeah.
Right. Great. Well, listen, we have some more questions on other type of tropical fruit trees, so I'll let you get on.
Okay.
One in particular wants to know about papayas. So, here we are, mangoes. Papayas.
Yeah, mangoes. So anyway, mango is the most grown tropical fruit in the world. It's far and away the acreage of mango exceeds all others. And
wow,
maybe it's one of the reasons is they're probably growing name varieties, but mangoes are very easy to grow from seed, and the tree that grows often has fruit that resembles the mother plant, which is not true. If you take a seed from an apple and plant it, you're not going to get a tree with that kind of fruit. It's going to be nothing like it. It's going to be very inferior. But with tropical trees, many of them, as a matter of fact, papaya would be another one. You plant a seed and the fruit you get is often similar to the tree that seed came from. And I only show the bottom left. There's only one seed in each mango, but on the bottom left, you have something called polyembryony. That means that more than one shoot, more than one potential new tree comes out of a single seed. We saw that in citrus also, if you remember. And what you do is you would take the largest one, you would take the most robust one, and remove the others. Although you could grow the others if you wanted, but that's just something to be aware of. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we've got a lot of questions. What if there is a bunch of rootstock? That is one question that just came up.
Is
that related to?
Yeah, I think they're talking about suckers, maybe.
Suckers.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. Suckers, suckers can be rooted. Suckers
Okay.
are much easier to root than cuttings from the top of the tree because suckers are closer to the roots. They have more naturally occurring hormones that would make them root. So if you take a cutting from the base of any plant, still put in rooting hormone and do the treatment, like we said, make a little mini greenhouse, you're going to get roots much more quickly than a regular cutting. Yeah.
Great. Okay, moving on. Pineapple. I love this one.
Yeah, so anybody can grow a pineapple. A reader named Joseph Ortega wrote in once about growing pineapples in San Pedro. All you do is cut off the top, as it's seen here. You put it in. You let it actually, which is called callus, but you let the roots dry out for a few days, and then you put it in water, and it starts to root. And once it roots, you take it and you put it in a pot with soil, and you keep it in a sunny location. And within 2 to 3 years, you get a pineapple. So it's a nice little thing to do with your kids. And what you want to do, of course, when it's growing, you water, not when it's in water, but once it's in the soil, you water and you can apply liquid fertilizer through the leaves. Everything is this is a bromeliad, right? There are many different bromeliads, right? With the ordinary leaves, but with really nice flowers. And so that's how you water and fertilize a pineapple, through the leaves. Yeah.
Love it. Okay, moving on. We're going to get to the papaya. We got to the papaya. Yay. Let's hear it.
So papaya, like the mango, papaya, if you buy a papaya in the market and you plant a seed, you're going to get a fruit very similar to the one that you eat. because, and here's the point. Papayas can be male, they can be female, or they can be hermaphrodite, bisexual, whatever you call it. In other words, they're going to have the male and female flowers together on the same tree. And the ones that are in orchards these days are all hermaphrodite, because what's the advantage? The advantage is pollination, right? Because if you have a male and a female tree, all the males don't produce fruit, right? So that's a waste of space. Now, if you just have females, you're going to need some males, right? Because they can't pollinate themselves either. So but if you're going to have hermaphrodite, so if you're getting a fruit in the supermarket, it's going to come from a hermaphrodite tree. You're going to plant that seed, and you're going to get the
hermaphrodite tree,
female flowers. Yeah.
Right.
And the reason I have these two photos of the images of the papaya, the one on the right is more traditional. By the way, they grow very quickly, 10 feet in a year, but they only produce productively probably for 2 or 3 years. Although some people get more out of them, and some people can cut the tops off, and they can get another crop that'll start to grow. But on the left, you have a variety called the Avocado papaya, which, by the way, is more cold tolerant than the regular papaya. It only grows 6 feet tall. So you see a guy there, and the fruit is different. You can say it's kind of a yellowish, kind of I would say almost cylindrical in shape. So that's something you might want to try. But you can, go ahead.
Oh, speaking of height, now this is a tangent a little bit, but Diane Hallahan wants to know, and we have a couple of questions about trimming back tropical fruit trees, avocado trees, and what about topping a tree for height control?
Right. Okay. Well, you never top a tree, except, you don't top a tree, except for papaya you do, because there's a single trunk, and people do top papaya trees. There's a ton of what should I say, testimonials of actual growers who say, oh, I always top my papaya trees, I get another crop, and so on and so forth. So you definitely can. Other trees you don't want to. I mean, except for the cherimoya, you don't top it. But or the sapote, let's say, you don't want to, or even getting what is a tree? There's a tree that grows very tall, and cherimoya, because if you have to hand pollinate a tree and you let it grow 50 feet tall, how are you going to get up there to hand pollinate?
Right,
so
exactly.
And just harvesting issues. So for those reasons, you want to keep the fruit small. You want to keep the tree small. I would say that's true of cherimoya. And
as I told you, our sapote tree was huge.
Okay, so there you go. So there you go.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to keep it at a size where you could more easily harvest, otherwise you have to wait for it to fall, or get a fruit to fall, or get a very tall limb.
Great.
One of the two.
Let's move on from papaya, but we do have a couple questions related to heat.
Okay.
One was, can it be, basically the questions are, can it be too hot? We have one reader, Julie, who says she lives near San Bernardino, where it is very hot, and already killed 5 avocados. I mean, is there something to?
It's the water that's going to kill them. I mean, it's a lack of water. Oh, let's put it this way. Avocado leaves can burn. It's true. Avocado leaves are, and like if you get an avocado tree in the nursery, you can do what's called hardening off, where you take a tree, let's say from the nursery where it's under very pampered conditions, and you don't expose it the next day to 100 degrees. You keep it in the shade.
And does
then after a week or 10 days, or maybe even 2 weeks, then you move it a little bit into the sun. You know what I'm saying? And a little bit further. But like in the middle of the summer, if you take a tree from a nursery and plop it in, 110 degree heat,
you're done. And is that true? I would imagine that is also true for passion fruit, for other tropical forms.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can give them shade their first few years, that's a real benefit. Because look at it in the forest, tropical forest. What is it? These little trees grow up. They're shaded by the bigger trees under canopy, and eventually they're going to get taller, and then they're going to be in the sun, and then they're going to start to fruit. Because they're not going to fruit their first few years, because they just want to survive. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Back to passion fruit. Sorry.
So passion fruit, it's great. I learned so much from you guys, because I got a letter from a reader in View Heights near LAX. She took a seed from a passion fruit of a friend who lives in Laguna Beach. She took the seed, she planted it in her yard, or against, like in a planter with a wall. She has a 60-foot long vine.
Get out.
Full of passion fruit from a seed. Okay. From
a vine. I didn't realize.
Yeah, and she speaking of sun, it's a very serendipitous, because she said that although passion passion fruit will give a crop in the sun. They do a lot better in the shade, in the shadier parts of this vine, I guess, where there's more leaf protection.
Yes.
The fruit is much more reliably produced. So there is that aspect. Yeah.
Great. Okay, moving on. We have so many questions. We could just do questions for the next 20 minutes, but please move on.
Really? Maybe we should.
Yeah.
I don't know. But here, okay, so here's another one. I mean, if you want to grow a fruit, you don't have to do anything. Dragon fruit, or apple cactus.
My kind of fruit. Okay.
They don't need water. They're cactus, for goodness sake. You don't water cactus. Okay. You don't have to once they're established. Not only that, but the pitahaya. So it says there's pitahaya, which is the dragon fruit, and there's a pitaya, which is the apple cactus. Anyway, but the flowers alone. Okay, so the pitahaya flowers are 12 inches across and very fragrant. So that's a bonus aside from the fruit. And you know the fruit are very, very expensive, right? And by the way, the yellow variety is the sweetest, so you might want to look for that, even though the red is also very good. But the point is, it needs very little water. And I want to just highlight for a second the reader on the bottom, Clotilde Boron. She wrote me about propagating this tree. It's very easy to propagate. If you take she said she took some cuttings and she stuck them in a pot, and within a year they had grown like 5 feet tall. Okay, so it's a very easy one to propagate. You can give it to your friends, right? And you know, it's a no-brainer. If you just have, you know, some of these plants are not thirsty. And then of course the apple cactus is the same, which if you open it up, it looks just like the dragon fruit. These little, you know, white with little black seeds. Yeah.
Love it. And it's pretty too. Okay, moving on. Well, we have before we get to bananas, we have a quick side question from Teresa Ryan, who wants to know, is pomegranate considered a citrus or not?
Oh, pomegranate is not a citrus, but in fact, a pomegranate is a Middle Eastern or Mediterranean fruit. So it's
it wouldn't qualify as tropical anyway. So
pomegranate. Well, you know, it's like subtropical. You know, it would grow in the tropics. I'm sure. You know, it's a deciduous tree. It loses its leaves, so it's more subtropical than tropical. But yeah.
Okay, great. On to bananas.
So banana, now, of course, most bananas are yellow. I don't want you to think there's something wrong with your computer that you have blue bananas. No, I brought it up because blue bananas, which are called ice cream or Java banana, are very cold tolerant, down to 15 degrees. So this is a good one if you're living in a colder area. And you know, they're very sweet, they're very good. And then ice cream bananas are also very ornamental. You see this little forest of bananas behind it. It's a nice touch, right? And you grow from rhizomes. You can propagate them yourself, right? That's what you just dig up. A lot of times they form suckers, right, that are coming up. The little trees, little banana trees. You dig it up. You can put it wherever you want, and it'll grow into another tree. In a couple of years, it'll give you fruit.
How thirsty are they, though? Aren't they?
You know, they would. I don't think. You know, I don't think they're that much more outrageously thirsty than you know, any other tropical fruit tree.
Got it. Yeah. Got it. Okay. Next up, cherimoya. We were just.
Oh yeah, so we're just talking about cherimoya. They grow very, you know, they're very vigorous growers. But I wanted to. So the big problem with cherimoya is because in the tropics they're pollinated by tiny little beetles, smaller than honeybees, and we don't have them here. So everybody says, okay, you have to do the pollination by hand, which means taking pollen. See, the female flowers open in the morning and the male in the afternoon. By the time the male opens, the female are already gone. So what you have to do, I mean, there might be some that are still open, so you would quickly pollinate those, but a lot of people will just refrigerate the male pollen, which only lasts a day. So the beginning of the next day, first thing in the morning, you go outside and you take that pollen and you put it on the female flowers and you get fruit. Now, some people get fruit without because wind also pollinates. So there are people that don't do this treatment. They get a few fruit, usually not that big. Because, you know, there's pollination and pollination. The pollination is not really up to snuff. The fruit size will suffer. But there's another very interesting point, because I don't have his name here, but a few years ago, a guy sent me an email, and he has a cherimoya orchard in Santa Barbara, and he said he hung bananas in the tree. The bananas attracted fruit flies. The fruit flies pollinated his trees. And even though that's not in the literature, but sometimes horticulture, it's not really by the book. He gets between 100 and 200 pounds of cherimoyas every year.
That is crazy. What an amazing idea, right?
Yeah. So, and the other thing he does is he lives on a ranch, and there's a ranch next to him where somebody has horses. He covers the soil around his cherimoya trees with horse manure, and that's all he ever does, and they flourish. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just play it by ear,
It's an art, not a science.
Yeah, it's an art, not a science. Absolutely. Yeah.
Listen, we're getting lots of questions about space. Like, how much space do mangoes need? What are we talking when we plant cherimoyas? Yeah.
Well, again, cherimoya and a mango, they'll eventually get to be very big trees. So, you have to be conscious of that, and you want to prune for size. You can keep trees at a moderate size. Okay. It's like what they do with citrus. I don't know if you ever saw in a citrus orchard, but they have this huge hedge trimmer, right? They go down the orchard and they just take the tops off the citrus trees for one reason only. It's too expensive to harvest fruit way up in a tree.
Yeah.
Okay. So that you can do it with citrus, you can do it with anything else. Now, avocado, you definitely don't want to do it with avocado. Okay.
Yeah.
And again, but who's to say? I mean, if you want to, you could prune a few. If the avocados, if it's getting way out of sight. But normally speaking, not with avocado, but other trees, yes, definitely, you can shape them to fit your needs. I mean, that's really what horticulture is. It's taking something that grows in nature and utilizing it for our own purposes.
To fit your needs. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. This hour is going by so fast, you would not believe. Okay, guava.
So there's tropical guava. And there are many different types, actually. The more traditional one is on the bottom, which is either yellow or green. But I sort of wanted to highlight the Malaysian red guava because it's an incredibly ornamental tree. As you can see, it has kind of maroon leaves, it has pink flowers, and then it has this maroon fruit. And when the fruit, you cut it open, it's also red. So it's red all the way through. And this is a pretty drought-tolerant tree, actually. In fact, a lot of tropical trees. I want to tell you, there's a place called Franklin Canyon. I don't know if you ever heard it. It's near Beverly Hills. If you take Coldwater Canyon north and you go across Mulholland Drive and you keep going, you get to some place called Franklin Canyon. Keep driving all the way in. There's a huge expanse there, which is like a big grassy area, and they have 2 avocado trees. Now, I know those avocado trees have not been watered in years, and there hasn't been any rain. And I think they really are on their last legs. But last year I was there and they had about 15 avocados, right? Not a lot, but it shows you that as a tree matures, and I've got letters from people. I have an avocado tree 70 years old and I never water it, and it gives me a ton of food. Why? Because the neighbors, water their lawns or whatever, and the water is, the roots have gone so far. So if you can stick it out, what I mean? Eventually they're really, should I say, extremely low maintenance trees. And they don't really need water as long as, there's a little water, a little irrigation in the area.
We have so many questions. Again, back to the leaves of the avocado trees. We started, Julie Pierce, we have like 25 questions. Do you cut up those avocado leaves or just leave them whole?
No, leave them right. You can leave them with it,
All right.
Do anything.
Moving on. Sorry, I just wanted to get to that because
if you cut them up, they decompose more quickly, right?
Right.
That's why people have shredders, right? They shred everything, or newspaper print. Let's say you want to mulch with newspaper, and you don't want to stack it, obviously.
Right.
Leaves you can stack more, outrageous. But like a newspaper, if you shred it and then you put it on, perfect. Yeah. Anyway.
It'll be fine.
Okay, so here's another. And this tree, I can't say enough about it. This is really not as tropical as it is subtropical. You can grow it anywhere in California, as a matter of fact. But what's special about this tree are the flower petals. The flower petals are literally like candy. It's the sweetest. The fruit is okay. You eat the flower. Yeah, the white. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Tell me about this. I haven't heard about this before. So I can grow this anywhere.
You can grow it anywhere, and a tree only goes 15 feet tall. It's incredibly ornamental. People grow it as a hedge. If you want the fruit, it's better to plant a couple trees again, right?
Right.
It's so fertile, but you get more fruit the more of them you have. But you can grow it in a container. You can grow it against the wall. You can trellis it, espalier it, or you can just see here, like there's a specimen here that's 15 feet tall. this is the time of year when the flowers are out. It's just really a delight. You know, it's great for kids, right? Oh, you can eat the flower petals and it tastes like, you know, cotton candy. So it's really a special tree. And it's in the myrtle family, which means that the bark is exfoliating, the bark, sloughs off, and it's a very smooth trunk. So everything about this tree, from the wood to the flowers, the fruit, and the leaves are a blue. You can see there's a very distinctive color to the leaf here. It's kind of a blue-green, very, very, very attractive. Yeah.
I love that it can withstand drought, so I don't have to worry about.
Definitely.
We have a question going back to the banana tree situation. Maya Krug says that she has a large a banana tree in a large pot and it has little babies at the base. Should she remove those or leave those? Also, how long does it take to get fruit from a banana?
A couple of years, 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it. Yeah, she can make another banana out of it. I mean, if they've rooted, obviously you can just take it out.
Right.
Get another tree, or just
All right. Okay, moving on. I don't know this one either.
I didn't either until I got an email from Julian Nguyen in Van Nuys. And I'm telling you, his tree looked a lot like this one. I mean, it's just covered with fruit. It's a Southeast Asian fruit. And it's it's like a lot of the fruits, they're kind of a hard shell and you scoop it out, right? You don't need to rind. But hundreds and hundreds of, and this is one where he told me the first 3 years, every night, he went outside during the winter and he wrapped the tree in burlap. And after 3 years, he didn't have to do that anymore. And now it's a 20-foot tall tree and it's on its own and it's giving you a ton of fruit. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Something I didn't know about.
Me either. And the same gentleman showed me this tree, which was on the south side of his house. Mm-hmm. It's called wax jambu, and it actually it has the consistency and the taste of an apple. Again, a very heavy producer. Grows around 20 feet tall. And this is one of those fruits that if you put salt on it, it turns sweet, which is, we're going to see another characteristic of another fruit. I think it's coming next, that by adding something to the fruit, or no, the next one you don't have to add it. Just if you eat it, there's certain fruits that if you eat them, if you eat something sour or bitter afterwards, the taste is sweet.
Let's see that next slide. We've got
that's the one with a miracle fruit. If you put a miracle fruit in your mouth and you slush it around, and then you take a bite and let the juices go, okay, so your mouth the chemistry in your mouth has changed. You bite into a grapefruit and the grapefruit tastes sweet. Tastes like an orange. It's crazy. It's really crazy. I've done it before. Heard of that. Yeah, so it's kind of like a curiosity, but it's something it's something to show off to your friends. It's pretty too.
It is very pretty. Listen, we have so many avocado questions. Can I just go back for a second?
Yeah, 100%. You're in charge here, Samantha.
Okay, that's right. I'm the boss. I forgot. I'm the boss. Yolanda Lixon asks, is there a lifespan for your avocado trees? She has a tree that is approximately 45 feet tall. And is
100 years is not out of the question. Okay.
Oh wow! So they are
the Hass avocado tree, the famous Hass avocado tree, lived for about almost 100 years. So it's not out of the question. Yeah.
So, and here's a question I always wonder about because I always get it wrong picking our own avocados. Marcy Ellenbogen wants to know, how do you know when the avocados are ready to pick?
Right. Okay. So avocados ripen off the tree, right? So the longer you leave it on the tree, the more oil content, the richer the taste. So look, you can leave it on the tree until it falls. It's going to eventually fall. But I think through trial and error, you begin to understand, how long is this fruit going to be on the tree? What's the maximum I can allow it to stay on the tree before it falls, and so on. But it's really, trial and error. But you begin to learn by studying the fruit and so on. Yeah.
Okay, and so now we have some very insistent questions that have come up a few times. Huma Fazeli wants to know, for the third time, can containers be used instead of topping off trees to manage the large size of the trees?
Yeah, look, containers can be used, but let's put it this way. There are very few trees recommended for containers, bottom line. Very few trees are recommended for containers. Right? I mean, you hear the kumquat, you hear the calamanda. I mean, but for a tree to really prosper in a container, look, if you make a big enough container, yeah, right?
Yeah.
But if those roots are not, have the problem with the container is you constrict the roots. And every year you're going to have to pot it up to a larger size container.
Right.
And I know that's a challenge for people living in living on a patio with only a patio or with only a balcony. I would suggest something like a Meyer lemon. They do pretty well in containers.
So citrus then would be.
I think citrus, yeah, some of the smaller citrus. Now look, there are small trees here too. You have, like I said, the dwarf Avocado Papaya. I would definitely try that. And the dwarf versions of any of these. Some of these are like the pineapple guava that we just mentioned that only grows 15 feet. I think that would be a good candidate for a container. But generally speaking, you want something that's either dwarf or the mature size is not very tall.
Right. And just one more question on size. Susan Hansen says, can we please get back to pruning or trimming avocado trees?
Bottom line is you never need to. But look, there are going to be situations like your tree is going into your neighbors. I mean, do it sparingly.
Yeah.
Do the minimum amount. That's what I say.
Got it. Okay, moving on. We've only got a few things. So my beautiful sapote, I love them.
Yeah, well, sapote. So this is a tree that can grow. If you want to see a really good version, go to Thousand Oaks, the Canal Valley Botanic Garden. If one of the two of you would rather shop than look at a botanical garden, like we went there. So my wife went to the mall in Thousand Oaks, and I went to the botanical. So, but anyway. It's a really incredible tree. It goes 50 feet tall, and the problem is, this is one of those. If you plant from seed, you don't know where you're going to get, because sometimes it fruits very little. Sometimes it fruits a lot. So you kind of want to get one that you know is a name variety. But it is drought tolerant. Once it grows up. Yeah.
And the wild parrots love it. I can tell you from experience. Okay, moving on. What else? Oh, lychee.
Lychee, yeah, lychee. That's another one. That's like an azalea in terms of liking acid. It grows up to 40. It's a really, really handsome, beautiful tree, right? And so again, it can survive brief exposure for any damage, but so for the first few years, every night you wrap it up, okay, and then it becomes more durable and established, and it can handle more temperature extreme. Yeah.
Well, listen, we have so many questions, but speaking about establishing trees, with all of these trees, avocado and all of the other tropicals we've mentioned so far, is it too late this year to plant?
No, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think we went over that earlier. This is actually a perfect time to plant tropical trees. And the reason being that you want the roots. See, the biggest downfall of tropical trees is the cold. So you want the roots to establish themselves before the freeze hits. With most plants, you want the roots to establish before the heat hits. Tropicals don't mind the heat. What they mind is the cold. So you plant them now, and they'll acclimate, and they'll get a good root system before the freeze comes. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, we've only got a few more minutes left. So is there something we need to get?
So let's just talk quick. Chinese date is a great tree because you don't have to. It's one of the more drought tolerant ones. And it's very ornamental, as you can see from the leaves, and the branches have a twisted structure, very ornamental. Yeah. Next one, star fruit. This is good because it has the flowers are in bloom more or less on and off throughout the year, and they're very pretty. The fruit when you cut it up, it has the star shape, and
sure, delicious in salads, fruit salads.
Yeah.
And what else have we got coming up?
Yeah, Surinam Cherry is excellent for a hedge. Has spring flowers. Yeah, you actually want the darker fruit, the ones that are dark red or black. They're sweeter than the lighter ones. Yeah.
Right.
And coffee. You can see it's really a splendid plant. I got a letter or an email from Sunny Lips in Highland Park, who said actually it's not. He lives near the Arroyo Seco, which is a very protected area, right? But you can see if it will remind you, if you look at the leaf, it might remind you of a gardenia, and it's related to the gardenia. And the flowers have the fragrance of a gardenia, so you can definitely grow it. Yeah, just for A coffee bean is actually a seed, and there are two seeds in every what's called a coffee berry. You open the coffee berry and you have two of these seeds. That's what they look like before they're roasted. And of course, they turn darker after they're roasted. But you can grow coffee. Yeah.
Who knew? Okay. Listen, we are almost out of time.
Yeah, we should go quickly. I don't know if you want, I definitely want to get to the page where we have nurseries because I want people.
Let's just go to that. I'm sorry we have to skip,
but this is really important. And the message at the top that a lot of these are mom and pop operations. So you really want to call before you go for a visit because they might not be there when you get there. But you can see they're all over Southern California. And I don't think anybody listening to this broadcast is too far. Well, they're not so much out in Ventura County, but otherwise they're actually La Verne Nursery, but that's wholesale, is in Piru. But yeah, anyway, but yeah, go ahead and indulge yourselves and call first. Yeah.
Well, call first to make sure they have what you need. Listen, I am sorry to say that's all the time we have. Time flies when we're having fun.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
It does. Thank you so much, Joshua.
And
listen, everybody, we had a million questions. Just know Joshua's column runs in Saturday's paper and online and all of our publications. His website is thesmartergardener.com. And listen, if you have questions for us, again, email at events@scng.com and we will make sure to get those answered. And if you want more gardening insights, join us next time on July 20th for cacti and other succulents. Meanwhile, you can catch up on our virtual programs if you missed anything by going to scng.com/virtual events. Also, this Friday on Bookish, we've got our Efronathon with Delia Efron, as well as Jacob Bernstein and Carolyn Aaron from the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Again, if you'd like to share your thoughts from today, or if you have additional questions, and I know you do, there were so many we couldn't get to, please, again, email us at events@scng.com. And if you're not a subscriber, you got to be to get Joshua's column. And if you want to get on all of the entertainment and info we offer, give us a call at 877-469-6133. Again, thank you for your support. And I hope we'll see you next time. Happy gardening, everybody.